Let's go.
Yes. Call the Newport City Council meeting to order for Monday, March 6, 2017, 6:30 p.m. The next item is an informational meeting about the budget. This gives people opportunity to discuss, actually not just the budget, but anything in the annual report. It should have been worded that way. Normally it is. I was at work when I saw that line item and I missed it. So it could be on anything in the annual report. Oh, it's been out for quite a while for people to read.
So, Paul, I've got just a couple of questions on the report. On page 13,
Page 13.
yes, down to the transfers and surpluses.
Right.
So there seems to be, I think, an error in the total when you add it up. At least it appears to me. Maybe you'll explain why it's not an error. The 270,337. I think that should be 420,000.
Okay.
And I'll bring up that later because I think that's what I'm going to try to ask is about the amount to be raised for municipal taxes is up by, the amount is up by 22%. And so I'm interested in asking how you got there. And I think I know how you got there, but I'm certainly willing to listen how you got there. On the water and sewer budget, the income and expenses don't balance. I was curious to why that was.
What page do you want to?
That would be just a second. I'll tell you what page it is. Oh, it'd be on page
27 to
30. If you look at the total sewer operation, you got $1,545,000 for expenses.
Oh, sewer. We're not talking about water and sewer.
Well, the water actually seems to balance, but the sewer doesn't. At least I don't think it does, because I look on page 27, it's got $1,463,000, and then the total for sewer is $1,545,000. So the income and expenses don't balance. So I was curious to what was going on there.
So it's off by 82,476. I'm just trying
Yeah,
to
I'm just
see.
trying, I was just curious why it wouldn't balance. You probably won't be able to answer that tonight. But normally when you do an income and expense, you balance.
Right.
So that's one of the things one of the sanity checks is you balance income and expenses. I assume that's what you guys are doing here. Okay, so I guess you won't, I know it'd be too hard to answer that tonight, but I wanted to point that out.
Mr. Johnson? Yes.
So we have to go through it, I don't know what.
On page 26.
Could be a formula error. Could be a formula error when it was
Sure.
transposed over. I mean,
Sure.
that could be, yeah.
On
Could be one
page
of anything on that
26,
side.
municipal building remodeling, for 14-15 you had 56,000. Yep. But for 15-16, you don't show anything. and I know remodeling expenses are still going on. So where do those expenses show up in the actuals for FY15-16 for the remodeling? I did find where $187,000 came out of the committed funds because we put that amount of money in there to pay for the remodeling, and you used it, which is great. That's what it was for. That was part of the committed surplus. But I don't see where the expense is for the municipal building remodeling, and that would be a capital expense. It isn't. Well, it's capital expense. I'll just say it like that. So that's a puzzle one for me. That needs to show up somewhere because the money was expended in FY15-16.
Other items?
Yeah. On page 22, let's see. Try to remember if I can get there. Page 22. I'm looking for, let's see, there it is. Okay, page 22. Utility streetlights. You budgeted for FY17-18, 95,000. So I believe that's wrong by about $50,000 because when I was leaving, they were just getting ready to install the LED lights, which you paid for. You showed you paid off the LED lights because we had a grant from Efficiency Vermont, and at the time it was paid off in 17 months. So it's been more than 17 months for the new budget for sure. And so the savings that we calculated for the LED lights was $50,000 because it's fixed, each light's a fixed charge. So there's 50,000 bucks. And you could check that very easily because you could look at any recent month's billing for streetlights and you multiply it by 12 and you're there.
Right.
So I don't know what happened there. I think what happened was a number was just plugged in because that's what was plugged in before.
Well, a lot of the numbers are based upon the actuals and then the percent up, and that's
Right,
probably
but that's-
because this was, you're right on that 90, on the 95, that was the.
And it's going to be less this year too.
Because the actual LEDs are saving.
Yes.
Right.
But I
so-
mean, that's something that's,
Right.
I'm
Something-
surprised you all missed because you approved the grant application.
Right.
And the reason we did it was because it was such a quick payoff, and 50,000 bucks is 50,000 bucks. And of course that comes into my, I'm going to add that 50,000 up later when I get to the amount to be raised by taxes. Okay. So you can check into that. I think you'll find it's $50,000 savings there. You're getting the savings. It's just not going to be an expense of 100,000. Okay. I noticed that in the year ending in page 25, we budgeted $1,440, I think, for the tennis court sinking fund, and I'm wondering what we collected for tennis court money, because the theory there was the money we collected from the tennis court we put into a sinking fund to pay for the resurfacing of it so that it wouldn't be a burden to the taxpayers. And I think there's $20,000 in there now, but I think you'll find it costs a lot more than $20,000 when you got to resurface those courts. So was it just an oversight that it could have been just an oversight why the money wasn't, it was budgeted but not put into the sinking fund? Yeah, there it is, page 25. We budgeted $1,440, nothing was put in, it was an actual. Just curious. It's just an oversight, I'm assuming. What happens if, it's true, if you don't spend it, it falls to the bottom line. But as you fellows, I think, realize that when it comes time to do those expenses, they're big. And it's nice to have a sinking fund, and that's what we've done over the years, is put in sinking funds so that we wouldn't have to raise taxes in one big jump.
Well, it was set up at the high school.
Right, right.
Because they did have a big expense years
Right,
ago.
that's
And then
been
we
big.
decided to set it up at the high school so that every year they pay,
Yeah, they pay, and we.
and it goes into that
Right,
sinking fund.
so we can maintain the tennis
Because it is
courts.
20,000 at least minimum.
Yeah, and we've done, I think, a good job maintaining the courts.
Right.
So that's the question there. Okay. Yeah, 20,865 is currently in that sinking fund. If you look in the audit report, you'd see that's what's in there currently. Okay. Then I noticed you decided to use. Well, I'll give you my hypothesis first, and then I'll try to support the hypothesis from the numbers, and then you can tell me, as you did in your letter, that it's because of EB5 and we didn't do maintenance on equipment. And let's see, how does it go here? Equipment. If I can find it. I have a hard time seeing these days. I'm glad I'm retired. Anyway, it was neglected maintenance or repair of equipment and property. Okay, so that upset me a bit. So that's really why I'm here, because that wasn't the case while I was here, and I think it's I'm obligated to show you mostly why you've got a $670,000 increase in the amount to be raised by taxes in 1 year, and I think I can do it. Okay, so let's start off. For the first time, you had to budget 100. You put the ambulance service money into the amount to be raised by municipal taxes in our budget, and it's true that doesn't affect the total amount to be raised by taxes. Whether you do it by appropriations or in the general fund, it makes no difference. I understand that, but that's 105,000. So let's just remember that number. And then you took. If I can find it here, you took. I gotta get on the right page, so excuse me. If I can find the right page. Gotta get the revenue, sorry, it's the revenues account here. You took $46,000. You had money assigned to bike path at $46,000. And so last year, the current budget, that was committed for the bike path. You took that money and you used it as a fund offset to help reduce taxes. So that's $46,000. And maybe you could tell me on page 13 what the 150,000 assigned fund balance, what that was from. That's on page 13. So we got roughly 50,000 and 105,000. Let's just keep track of those two numbers. Keep adding some numbers here.
You said 50 and 105.
Yep.
I'm making notes.
And so I'm kind of curious. In the proposed budget, it's 130,000. In the current budget, it's 150,000. Could you tell me what the 150,000 is assigned from fund balance? What that was assigned from?
Surplus.
No, the surplus was 224,000. That's a number above it. I think when we say assigned fund balance, it's something that you have committed, assigned, and this.
Well, that 130 should have been up a line, John.
Yeah.
But that came from the surplus.
That came from
Not
the
surplus, that came from the reserve.
Okay.
You know what the auditor says, the
Right.
reserve fund?
Right, so let's go
If
with
you notice before, it was 224 for the reserve.
Okay.
That came out of the auditor, the city's reserve fund.
Okay.
That 130 actually should have been up above.
Okay, fine.
Because that came from the
Right.
100, that came from the reserve, well, the city's reserve.
Sure,
You
sure.
know what I'm talking
Okay,
about.
fine. So now let's talk about the $150,000 for the current year, if you could. What is that? It says committed. It says assigned fund balance. We could talk about that for a minute. Tell me what that is.
Do you remember, Mr. Johnson?
I believe that's the same thing, John. It's in the wrong spot. The 224 shouldn't be there at all.
On page, oh, so the 224 and the 150, the 224, so it's not,
It should be just 150.
This
It
150.
should be 150, that's what we took out of the reserve last year.
Right.
Remember that?
okay, so that's a mistake in the report, you're saying. So if I take out the 150, 224, okay, all right, that's an error. Let me just make a note of that. No, okay. All right. Well, that hurts my thesis a little bit, but let me
It's all right.
forge ahead. Um,
You put a little wrinkle in your thesis, right, John?
Huh?
You're the mathematician, and put a little
Well,
wrinkle in your thesis a little.
Yeah, I just lost 150,000. That's 6 cents.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mhm.
You know, 6 cents is.
But are you putting it in the wrong spot, and that's a concern,
No, they're saying it just, shouldn't have been there.
but it
So-
was.
Well, it shows in the report, but, I mean, anyway. So we're not gonna quibble about small errors. Of 150,000, that would make us bad. Okay. so-
That's in the current year's budget.
Yeah, currently, right.
That's
Because-
in this current budget, not the proposed budget.
So we've got 52,000, 105,000, and you've got, so now it is 270,000. I thought it was gonna be 420,000, but instead it's only 270. Okay, so 270. So now we're up to 5, 12, 425,000, if my numbers are right. The 270, the 105, I know it doesn't make a difference to the tax rate, but we're in the budget. And the 52,000 that you took, roughly 50,000 you took for the fund offset. So that's 425,000. So now you come to the, and 50,000, that's gonna help you. Streetlights are gonna help you. So then you get to the current budget. And that money is gone. In other words, you lowered the tax rate in the current year by $0.015. And so there's no free lunch. So you have to make that up. Yeah, according to the report in here, it's $0.015. I got those numbers.
Yeah, you're about right.
Yeah, thanks. So you lowered the tax rate by about 1.5%, and you used $425,000 of surplus money. So, so 7.5 is, well, that's only, let's call it 50,000, roughly, 25, 37.5.
About 40.
40, about 40. So now you're trying to make up $465,000 with nothing changing in expenses. But you used that money from last year, and now you have to raise it in the proposed budget. Okay? You know, I mean, unless you actually go out and take a meat axe to the budget. So what I'm trying to say is, last year when you decreased the amount raised by taxes by $0.015, you caused your problem for this year. Because you have to, because you really, you follow my reasoning? For $105,000 for the ambulance, it didn't show, it showed up as an expense, but it didn't show up in the tax rate. You cut other stuff, right? You had to have, because the tax rate went down $0.015, and that expense went up $105,000. Does that make sense? It does, doesn't it? You added an expense of $105,000, and you cut the tax rate by $0.015. So this year, you got to go get that money, because you didn't get it last year. You cut other expenses. You had to have to get the tax rate down. The only way you could do it. It isn't magic, right? So that's, I think, why you got to this. That I don't think any of you, I'm going to say this, I might not be correct. I don't think anyone sitting there realized that the municipal taxes, the amount I'm going to pay my municipal taxes, is going up about 20%. I think you thought, and maybe I'm wrong, you can tell me I'm wrong, and I probably am, but I'm going to say it. I think you sat there and thought, well, we got reappraisal coming, that's gonna save us. They won't see a 20% increase in their taxes. But the budget you're proposing is a 20% increase in the municipal tax, not the school tax, the municipal tax. That is too big, in my opinion. And the voters will probably vote for it because our voters trust city staff and they trust the city council and the clerk treasurer. So, but think of the burden you're gonna put on those people. I don't think you guys thought it through, but there again, maybe I'm wrong. That's
Well,
just
I'd
my
like to
opinion.
respond one way, is I said to the council that the budget would call for hard cuts. And we had a room full of people who didn't wanna, who were against hard cuts in the budget, as far as the, you know, I'm gonna say it again, I opened my mouth, and yes, it was interpreted wrong, I was using an analogy. People wanna keep city services, you keep the essential. I said that, I actually opened my mouth and probably inserted a foot at the time, I said the rec department was not essential, but many residents came here and they say it is essential. That could have saved in the current budget, John, you know the numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, it might come to the point where we have to cut services, cut the plowing, or that's what it's getting at. You know, it's getting to the point now, and you said, you actually over your tenure here, said that we were gonna pay the piper of keep using the surplus.
Yes.
And we don't have the surpluses
and I use-
anymore because we've got budgets that are so tight now.
But I ran a surplus nearly every year, and that's how we got those big funds in there.
Right.
Because we didn't spend money, if we didn't have to. But last thing I want to talk about is.
But we aren't spending money that we don't have to.
But I understand that it's the city council has to make a policy, what's gonna happen in the city. I understand that totally. And you guys have got a tough job because I don't think the city can keep going the way it's going because there won't be any of us middle class people left to pay taxes here. At least, I don't think so. Maybe they will be. Maybe there's more rich people here than I thought.
We do have proposed cuts?
No.
Did
no,
you come
that's-
tonight with proposed cuts?
No, absolutely not. Why would I do that? I mean, that's your job.
Well,
I did tell
you
you-
could have
I
input.
tried to say-
You could have input.
I saved you $50,000 at no pain.
Right,
in the
right,
streetlights.
but it'd be helpful if you'd come tonight with also proposed
That's
cuts.
not his job. His job is.
Listen,
Well, no, but it's good,
it's a
excuse me, I'm
policy.
talking.
You guys have to make a
Let me
policy.
finish, let me finish my train of thought, please. I know it's our job, but it's also our job to listen to what the public wants. And, you know, it's always good to hear from the public what they think we can cut. No, you can laugh at me all you want. You can laugh at me all you want over there. You always laugh at me. You two always laugh at me, but I don't care. No, you do. You sit there and you snicker at me all night. I'm just making a statement. I've always asked people, what do you want to cut? I have. But no one seems to want to cut services, John. And
So-
that's the issue.
So,
There was a proposal to cut the Renaissance to zero. But because of Renaissance, we get grants that we wouldn't get. You know, that's
I think-
25,000, that's peanuts in what you're talking about in the grand scheme of things, to get grants to offset things. And so, the hard cuts have to come, do we need the size of a rec department? Do we need the size of the police department? Have we reached the breaking point where we actually have to cut all the major services in the city? And we may have reached that point now, and that's what I'm getting at, John.
Right. So I just want to finish up.
Let him finish,
Someone else
and-
wants to talk, I'm sure. So, I don't believe I believe we did do maintenance on our equipment and our property. And if you wanted, I could start with a whole list of stuff we've done in the 16 years I've been here, spending millions of dollars on infrastructure. Millions. Not hundreds of thousands, millions. So we've kept up our roads, we've kept up our water, we've kept up our sewer. And it had nothing to do with EB5. Boy, we wanted EB5. We really did. And it was a real shock that we weren't going to get it. Because yes, we all knew that would save us from the problem that you guys face now. You five have to solve. How are you going to, what policies are you going to have in the city of Newport so that people can afford to pay their taxes? I was extremely disappointed. I didn't present myself too well. I don't know why. Maybe my wife had been picking on me or something. But when we went to the meeting on the Scott farm, and I stood up a couple times and spoke against the land trust acquiring that property. Why did I do that? Not because I'm against the land trust, but that Scott farm was valuable future tax income for the city of Newport. Now it's gone. You're going to get maybe we appraised for $1 million. I don't know what it's going to sell for. it's gonna have a farm easement on it. So all that waterfront's not gonna be worth what it was worth if people like Steve put an expensive home on it.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on
So
that.
anyway, that horse got out of the barn. I'd ask you to think about, maybe we should think about selling Prouty Beach and putting a stipulation in that it has to stay in the tax rolls. I don't really know the answers. That's your problem. You guys are looking to do that. So, thanks for your time. I still believe that you didn't realize we were gonna see a 20% increase in our municipal tax. I think you somehow had a brain fade or something. I don't know what happened.
As far as the Scott farm, we were all misled on that. That was purchased before we even knew it, unfortunately, because I actually asked the individual the question in an email, and they said no, because it was all around town that they had bought that property, and I emailed the individual. They responded, no, we have not bought it, and the next day, they bought it. It was bought. So we were misled as a council on that property. And there's nothing, of course, John, there's nothing we could do to stop them from buying it, unfortunately. That's
Of course.
But unfortunately, that is a huge chunk of property, valuable. I've walked that property many times. We know how valuable it is.
That was the first time I was on that property when they had the open house. I've lived around my life and I've never been on the Scott
You
property.
hadn't been on it?
I've never been on it. It's been
Who won't
posted.
let you on?
Right.
Jackson
I'm a duck hunter, so I'd like to be on that property. But
No, I know. That's, yes.
I'd like to make a couple comments.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
The issues that John has raised were issues that 3 of us in this room raised along the way. We told you that the increase was 22%. You shouted us down, and now you have the gall to sit there and say, we're sitting here snickering at you. We're not snickering. We raised these issues. You yelled at us. All of you.
I agree with you.
Then why didn't you say so to your
I did.
colleagues
I
as they
did.
balled us out?
I voted against it, remember?
Yes,
Because
you
of
did.
those very reasons
Yes, you
brought
did.
up.
But you allow your colleagues to talk to us as though we're naughty children.
I can't control
The
that.
issues were raised, they were laid out in the same way that John laid them out. But you blew us off. And then you had the gall to say that citizens don't get involved. The reason they don't get involved is that you treat us like children. It's really insulting.
You got a brief on that?
No, I just wanted to add that in addition to that, there were times during the budget meetings where decisions were being made and we were told at various points along the way that we could not talk or ask questions during the meeting. So it's very interesting now that we're told that we had total input during the meetings when at various times we were limited to only making comments during the opening statements, and we were told that these meetings on the budget were totally for you guys,
Right.
and that our input was not to be had at those times.
And had no value.
Yeah, I got a couple of comments. I'll start with the Scott Farm. John's absolutely right. It got away from us, but if you remember right, I gave a whole presentation on what we'd get up for taxes if they only developed 40 acres of that piece. It would have been over $200,000, and nobody wanted to hear it, but that's over the hill now. As far as the repair and maintenance get away from it, I read the same article twice in the paper. And some of that may be true, but I can't speak, the city manager's not here, but I did not use that as an excuse for the budget going up. But all we do try to do is warn you not to skimp on the budget for years in a row, because somewhere along the line it's going to come back to bite you. I went back and checked all the budgets from 2008 to the one we're going to vote on tomorrow. And in 2008, the budget passed at $2,755,000. Last year it was $3,112,000. That's an average of a budget going up $40,000 every year for 9 years. Now, every year John would come in, would tell the department heads and myself, you put 3% increase in your budget, which equates to, I'm guessing, probably 3.5, 4 cents on a tax rate. And every year, prior councils would cut that down to a penny and a half. This is the other half of why we got such an increase. All right, for 9 years, the average rate increase in the tax to be raised was $39,600. If you add this year in at $3,800,000, 1 year, okay, and average it out 10 years, the average is $104,000 a year, which is 4 cents on the tax rate. And that gets you, from my calculations, if the tax rate had gone up 3% or 4 cents a year over a period of 10 years, you'd be within $50,000 where we're gonna beat them all. That had happened. Now, I've said here for a long time when John was here, warn them every year, don't cut the budget down to nothing, because somewhere along the line you're gonna pay. Okay, and the mayor said that before. And guess what, folks? This is a year we're gonna pay. Now, John's findings are, I haven't looked at, I can't answer 3/4 of them because I don't prepare the budget, but that's part of it. But this is the other half right here. When you don't raise enough tax and you keep cutting back and cutting back and cutting back, and it's not these guys. They did it once. Previous councils have done this for 10 years. And now we're at the point where all that money's gonna be made up because you just can't, it's unsustainable, and that's the way it is. We're here now.
We're not disputing that. What would have
No,
been,
I'm just adding to John's reason
Right.
why it's a big increase.
but what wasn't okay was that you shouted us down when we fed that back to you and what the increase would be. And that includes you, Jim. You did.
Well, that may be.
It's not okay.
Well,
It's
I
not
understand
okay.
that. But if you're saying something, I can't remember what the topic was, but I'm gonna defend myself. And that's as simple as that.
You
These
told us,
guys, they could have defended everybody.
you told
I'm
us the
defending
numbers
myself.
we were giving you back were not valid, and that's
No.
not true.
That's not true. In fact, I put out a memo to the council a month and a half ago, that listed all these values of houses and what the tax rate, what their taxes were gonna be if we went up 10% and 20%. So, I've got a copy of it right here. Everybody should have had that. So everybody knew what the taxes are gonna be.
But your hallucination is that the grand list is going to go up 50 million. That's a whopping increase.
We can only go by what the experts tell us it's gonna be.
That's not what the assessor was saying, so we're still going to have to meet that amount.
All the assessor said it's gonna be 315 million.
The state said what?
The state said 305.
Right.
He said that will go 3 or 4% more, so that's where you get the 315. I'm not an assessor,
But it still
I'm not an
doesn't make
expert.
up for
Doesn't
the, it still doesn't make up for having to make up for the past years.
It doesn't make any difference, because you haven't had a lot of new construction. So it's the same people paying it. It's just gonna, I may pay a little more or a little less. I'm hoping I pay less on our condos, on Informational views, and more on my house, but we'll see. But the point is, we're all gonna pay it. We're all in the same soup, we're all gonna pay it. And anyway,
Some may go up, some may go down.
exactly.
But it's come to the point, as I keep
But
saying.
most will go up.
Yes.
Most
But
will
I
go
keep
up.
saying it's come to the point,
With 671,000, yes.
do you agree,
Oh,
John?
I
It's
don't
come
know.
to the
Yeah, I'm
point,
sure, John.
it's come to the point of city services. It truly has come to that point of city services. What should be cut? And that's what it's come to. It's come to the city services. It truly has. Go ahead, Ms. Scobie.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, with all due respect, we hear what you're saying, but we're not gonna make those decisions in this meeting tonight. I think that the appropriate way to do that is to warn us as to what the discussion will be, and I bet you will get city people here that will wanna have a rich discussion about what we need to have or what we can cut. I haven't been to the city council meetings, I'm just listening to these ladies for the first time. It doesn't sound like there's been a lot of respect, I don't really know that, I can't say that. But I bet if you put something out there that says we need to have some rich discussion, some real hard decisions about what needs to happen in our budget, I think you'll get people to show up. They might not be happy, but at least at that point, we won't get into a shouting match or a demeaning. I felt a little demeaned myself when we were just talking about this, and I'm a city taxpayer, I pay taxes on my condo. You know, so we all have a right to have a discussion about what we just want to have for our budget. We are the taxpayers, just saying that. Thank you, Lisa.
Well, we had a discussion on the rec department. The room was full of people who didn't want any cuts in the rec department.
I'm just responding to.
No, I know, but there was a room full of people who didn't want anything cut in that department.
And also, the budget process was rather lengthy. It went on for several weeks, where you were certainly all welcome to partake.
Oh, yeah.
But
Sat on the school board, you know about it.
you know all about budgets, you were on the school board for many, yeah. But we did have, and back to the land trust, John remembers a room full of people who were all in favor of it. I mean, at the time, of course,
Gosh, a whole
a good
auditorium.
majority of those people weren't even from Newport, unfortunately. Remember that, John, too?
A lot of them are from Bluff Road, and maybe if I lived on the Bluff Road, like some of you, I might feel the same way.
Did you do
You know,
it?
Well, you guys do it.
I think.
All right, I
you
got
spoke
one.
for it, Steve. Steve, I think you spoke for it.
Yeah, I did,
Right, right.
yes, sir.
So, that's okay. We all get opinions, and that's fine. It shouldn't surprise anybody that the Scotland people, the neighbors, like Ann, that they're gonna be for it, because, you know, they were to look at that farm and look at houses. I understand that, I'm not stupid. But as a taxpayer, I'd like to see good, expensive homes there.
Yeah, that costs us $250,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The sad part is, John, and no developer even had a chance to bid on it because they slipped in and bought it before the auction.
I understand it, that's how the government works in Vermont.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So, okay. Oh, sorry, Mr. Hafer.
Considering all the budget cuts that are gonna be needed, I would suggest that the council, whoever is on the council coming tomorrow, put together alternative budgets, looking at all the alternatives and bring that up to the public.
They have to
You have to, yeah, but I'm talking for the future, because this problem isn't going away.
Well, can I make a comment on that?
Yes.
John may disagree with me on this one. It may theoretically go away because this budget's gonna put us where we should have been, anyway, over a period of 10 years. So basically, we're starting at zero again. Starting at a level playing field.
I would disagree with that, but I'll just say this, we have one of the highest tax rates in the state of Vermont, one of the highest. For a year or two ago, we were the highest. And when I look around the community, we don't have the highest income in the state.
Right.
We have a lot of people on fixed incomes.
Yep.
And I'm fine. But we have a lot of poor people. And they do get their property tax subsidized on the education end. But I don't believe they get it subsidized on a municipal tax end,
Just education.
just education. So if you're working for $15 an hour and you get a big tax increase, you're not getting a raise. You know, so that's tough.
We all feel that pain.
Yeah.
When they get the homestead rebate, they don't care which tax it's coming from. All they want to see is the check. Probably 60% of the people in Newport are getting a rebate. That's neither here nor there, but
That's not a school tax.
I know, but they don't, it doesn't say school tax.
No, it just goes to reduce the overall tax bill, right? Because it goes
Overall
directly
tax.
to your office, correct? If I remember right, it goes to your office.
That's right.
They changed
Goes
that.
to Total tax.
That gives you an idea of how many people need help. doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to clarify, when you say people get a rebate, they can get a rebate of anything from $2 up to a significant amount of money. So it may not be a very big rebate that they're going to get. And it doesn't compensate for the fact that their municipal tax, on average, is going to go up 22%. That's going to hit each one of us who live in Newport approximately 22%, whether or not you do it one way or another. And the way to have this reconsidered is to say no to the budget tomorrow and have you guys reconsider the budget. I mean, that's the import of what some of us have been saying when we say that that budget seems to have gone up too much. To have it reconsidered, say no tomorrow, and see where we go from there.
Tomorrow will tell.
Okay.
So I'm not wealthy, but I live in Newport because of the services, and I know my taxes are gonna go up probably significantly. But if we didn't have the recreation department and sidewalks that are well maintained, I wouldn't want to live here. I mean, I choose to live in Newport City, and I choose to pay the taxes I do because of the services. So I may not be the majority in this room, but there's a lot of people who live here that feel the same that I do, and we're happy to pay our taxes. And we don't want services cut.
We heard that loud and clear. Budget process.
Anything else from,
I just got one last comment. I know that it's a little off topic, but I'd like to say it because I don't come to these meetings since I've been retired, and you won't see me again for a year or more.
Please come at the next budget.
No,
process.
I think you don't need my input. You've got plenty. I know there's been some discussion about taking over private roads. The city's had a policy, a long-standing policy on roads that developers have to build in the city specs. And if they build in the city specs and pay them, we take them over. So I know there's been a developer, and at least one, that wants you to take over a private road.
Right.
I would urge you not to change our policy, because there's lots of other private roads in town, and especially with the budget constraints, you shouldn't worry about a developer making a profit. You should worry about us peons paying our taxes. And by the way, we have to pay them because we have a tax sale if you don't pay them.
Right.
And that's the worst part about being the city manager here, was when I was a tax collector. And we sell people's homes, or we auction them off when they can't pay their taxes.
It's a hard thing to do.
It's a hard thing to do, but we have to do it. We have to collect the money. We have to collect the money to meet the city expenses. And so I just encourage you not to change our policy. We've had Frank Knowles, a developer. He built his stuff to city spec, paid it, we took it over. I think it was Louis Carter, not Louis Carter, Louis Daigle did the same off over on Sias,
Jackson Street.
Jackson Street. So there are developers that have met our policy. I urge you to be very careful about changing our policy. Thank you.
John, what do you think about tax incentives for developers who will guarantee a certain number of residential properties in new construction?
I'm not big on tax incentives. These developers are very smart, very sharp. They're very good, and they're good businessmen and women, and I admire them. Let me give you an example of what you already subsidize, but you don't know you subsidize. I bet you don't know you subsidize it. We Gilman Housing Trust, I don't know what they're called now, Rural Edge.
Rural Edge, yeah.
So the city was, we went out, you look in the annual report, you see the millions of dollars that we borrowed through the city, we got a grant, and Sleeper Place, and there's two of them.
Down here.
down here?
Yeah, right, right, in the old Sunset Building. So we supported it, we got the millions of dollars, they did all the work, but the money had to come to the city. And the report, you'll see that they got to pay us back in 2040 or something, they got to pay those loans back. Now, we got it in the city report because we wanted to be sure everyone knew about it, because they're going to try to have us forgive those loans. I hope the council in 30 years, I won't be here, won't forgive the loans, but they'll be asked to forgive them, believe me, that's how it works. So, but here's the kicker. They don't pay a full property tax.
No.
In the state legislature, because they're looking out for low-income people, and they want them to live in nice housing, and that's great. But those nice new remodeled homes, remodeled apartments, they don't pay the same property tax that everyone else here pays.
Based upon income.
School and municipal?
Right.
Yes.
I'm not sure about school. I just know about municipal.
It's based upon income.
So you're already subsidizing. You don't know, but you're already subsidizing housing development in the city of Newport. So I would caution you on want to spend taxpayers' dollars on subsidizing private developers when you're already doing it.
Right.
But I'm thinking short term to stimulate,
Well,
But a good point was raised to me by, actually, one of my neighbor has put in 50 to 60,000 in fixing up their home. They don't get a tax credit for that, and they came to me and we were sitting down talking about
I
that.
understand.
But Rural Edge, yeah, that's very true, it's based upon income. And the issue with the state of Vermont, I want to make it known, we have a potential project in Newport where we would love to see senior housing, because there's a huge shortage of senior housing. The state will not help that developer subsidize it, because it has to be low income. It can't be senior. And that's in my craw, and I already told the delegate, Montpelier delegation that should be changed, because here's a developer who wants to fix up a whole block in downtown and put in housing, but he can only get tax credits for low income, not for senior. And that we need. John, you know.
Yeah, there's one other suggestion I might make, and Spencer, the assessor, may have already made this recommendation to you, but I used to be against it, but as I thought about it more and realized what problems we have, I was mistaken, I should be for it. The zoning bylaw should be fixed so that if you're making an improvement, let's say of more than 10,000, or maybe 15,000, you have to decide what number. But when you do that, no matter inside the house, you have to get a permit. And then the project can be reassessed. So I have an older home. If I want to spend $40,000, my wife wants a new kitchen and a new bathroom, or $50,000, I can just do it now. Nobody knows the difference, and I don't get reappraised for 10, 15 years. So I think maybe you should look at, and I hate having more bureaucracy, but I think it might make sense. I think it does make sense, actually. If you're making improvements to your home and it's more than a certain amount, maybe it's 20,000, then you have to get a permit, and then the assessor would go in and assess your home, and it would get reassessed. So,
I thought they do it in most places.
well, you catch the house improvements
Before the
14
reappraisal.
years, 14.
before 14 to 15 years.
So
Neil, that's
somebody
right.
doesn't get a massive jump in their tax bill either. You know what I'm saying? Instead of waiting 10, all of a sudden have a big,
Well, they're gonna get a jump.
no, they're gonna get a jump, but it might not be as bad as.
Take a jump.
They-
We don't know about that, but anyway, it's something to consider, because I think it's, anyway, something to look at.
No, I know that whole thing with the
That's pretty hard to.
the proposal. I know they wanna come back and make a proposal. They do wanna come back and make a proposal on their plan. That may be the meeting you wanna come to too when they come back. Because I know my neighbor came to me on that whole thing. Because after what they put into their house, they didn't think it was fair and equitable as they put it. Now, we do already have a policy to promote business, because remember,
Yes.
and that has worked.
Yes, I don't think people know about that, but.
We have a municipal policy where if you're building a new building, or you're, like Revision Military took advantage of it, where you get a percent, you pay a percent of your municipal taxes until after 10 years.
Well, the TIF program. that's
It's
what
not,
we're
no, this
working on
isn't
now.
TIP, this isn't TIP. This is our own policy, where it ranges from 5 to 10 years, depending on the size of the project. And you can get municipal exemption, well, you have to pay 10% the first year, I can't remember
It's
the,
not, no, I think it.
it's zero, then it goes up
Yes.
10% every year.
Yeah,
Depending, but it depends, it's all based upon, the number of years of that policy is based upon the size of the project and the number of jobs.
right.
And we already have that for industry side.
So that can overlap with TIF if we need to.
So that would, over the
Yeah.
TIF over
Yeah.
here. But it's all, so we do try to have some incentives. Okay, anything else on, yes, Mr. Bayrow? On the budget or the book?
It's not on the budget as such. I have a building lot on a street in Newport, and it's ready to build. If you institute that policy for a developer, they have less taxes for the next 5 years on their building. But I don't get it on my lot. That isn't
We haven't
fair.
written a policy yet.
That isn't fair.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, anything else? Then we'll move on to the next item, which is to approve the minutes of February 27th, 2017. We need a motion. So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion?
Discussion. As I was reading this afternoon, we never put an adjournment on that meeting. We come out of executive session,
Right.
and we never adjourned, so we're still in session.
Okay, motion made and seconded, just never got the minutes. Right.
Well, we did adjourn, I make a motion.
Change it.
Yeah.
I think-
Oh, you're right, we did though, but yeah.
Yeah, Jim just didn't, he just didn't get it in the minutes.
So does that mean we're gonna approve them, or we're gonna fix it?
We're gonna fix it.
Let's fix it and
Next
have it
meeting.
at the next meeting.
I just read that second, yes.
I didn't catch that. I read it the other morning.
So,
Right.
the motion was made and seconded. Is there a withdrawal of the second?
Sure.
And a withdrawal of the motion?
Yes.
Okay, and then let's have a motion to table the minutes until the next meeting.
So moved.
Where are they? Give them back.
I have it over here. So a motion made to table, is there a second?
Second.
Made by Mr. Roberts, second by Mr. Morris, to table the minutes to the next meeting. Any discussion, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, ayes have it, motion carries. Next item, comments by members of the public? Yes.
I just have a question. In light of what the governor's been doing with respect to Homeland Security, and in light of the fact that the police department said that some of the monies that they sometimes get in terms of grants are for our police to do some services for Homeland Security, I want to make sure that, and I hope that you guys will think about making sure that none of our policemen are utilized to stop people from coming down from Canada. Apparently there have been some incidents at the border. It's relevant to tourism, Canadians being willing to come down. And I think that none of our police should be utilized in discriminatory ways at the border and against immigrants. And we have many immigrants who work on farms in the area. And I think it's important that if we have to, we refuse Homeland Security's money to use our police force for anything that even our governor does not think is correct. Our Republican governor does not think is correct. So I'd ask you to find out, first of all, how our policemen are being used by Homeland Security, and consider whether or not we want that to be how our police are utilized.
The Operation Stone Garden, as it was called, they do not inspect vehicles coming over the border. They basically are there in case someone runs the border. That's it. They do not sit on the border to inspect vehicles. That's left to Customs and Border Protection. So yeah, no, we don't take the job of Customs and Border Protection. All we are is, they sit up like with other police agencies in case some car runs the border, is what they do. That's it. They don't do any inspections of people trying to get into the US.
Thank you.
Right, coming through the customs, what I was trying to say, yes, okay. Anything else? Then we'll move on. Next is the Green Mountain Solar Net Metering Proposal, Sam Carlson. Mr. Carlson is here. Thank you for patiently waiting.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just a correction, Green Lantern.
Green Lantern? I said, yeah, Green Mountain, Green Lantern.
These are just handouts for each one of you. There should be one for each. Oh, maybe you've already got them.
Yeah, I think we have.
The one pager already got, there's some, maybe an attachment or two there. So my name is Sam Carlson. I work for a company called the Green Lantern Group. We're based in Waterbury. We're a solar developer. We do what's called commercial scale net metering solar arrays that are designed principally to benefit towns, schools, large electricity consumers. On the third page of your handout, you'll see all of the projects that we have developed that are operating, and you'll see under the column off-taker, those are all of the customers, mainly towns, schools, and some large electricity consumers such as Cabot Cheese or Sugarbush Ski Area or Smugs that are also benefiting from net metering. We are right now developing a 500 kilowatt solar array. What that means in more practical terms is about a 3.5 acre solar array in Derby on Route 5 in the old gravel pit, or it's still being used as a gravel pit that's owned by Gosselin Enterprises. This is part of the reclaimed gravel pit that's about 750 feet set back from Route 5. It is not right on Route 5, it's set back in sort of the northeastern corner of that gravel pit. We submitted that project for permitting to the Public Service Board last month. The Public Service Board typically takes 4 to 5 months to process one of these applications. Our hope is that we'll get what's called the Certificate of Public Good, which is our permit for that probably in, say, July. And we'll be building the project soon after that, and we're targeting operations September 1. How solar net metering works, you plug the solar array into the grid. The Vermont Electric Co-op doesn't pay us a penny for that electricity that goes into the grid. What they do is they issue credits. Those credits can be used like a credit that you can use at a store. You use a credit to pay down your bill. If you're going to buy shoes someplace for $50 and you've got a credit for $40, you end up spending $10 at the end of the day. It's similar, net metering credits work the same way. Those credits aren't worth anything to us. We have to sell those credits. We have to monetize them if we're going to be able to pay for our solar array. What we are proposing to the city of Newport, as we have done with all the towns and cities that you can see referenced there, Barry, Rutland, Waterbury, Brattleboro, Proctor, Pittsford, Pownell, is to sell those net metering credits to the city at a discount, meaning you pay for a credit less than what it's worth. And that gives you a savings that you can use to offset your electricity expenditures. Specifically, what we're proposing is that the city purchase 700,000 kilowatt hours of these net metering credits per year. If you do that, you will save approximately $12,000 a year for the next 20 years. There's no upfront cost of doing that. There's no liability. There's no risk. There are no operating costs. It's pure savings, which is why all towns and cities and schools have been doing this around the state of Vermont. I believe that the city of Newport already has a net metering agreement in place for about 200,000 net metering credits with Great Bay Hydro. And I hope that's working well for the city, and I hope it's generating some savings. This basically just takes that same agreement and expands on your purchase of 200,000 kilowatt hours of net metering credits to 700,000, an additional 700,000, so there'd be a total of 900,000. Your electricity bill annually is somewhere in the realm of $300,000 a year. You can easily use all of these credits to pay down your bill. There is an outstanding issue right now that the legislature and the Public Service Board are still fighting over the new net metering rules. And just last Thursday, the Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules sent the new rules for net metering back to the Public Service Board, saying they were not in full agreement on them. So things are still trying to get worked out in Montpelier over the next month or two. But there is, in the draft rules that are likely to be approved, a customer limit on net metering equivalent to a 500 kilowatt solar array. The solar array that we're going to build and operate will probably generate around 900,000 kilowatt hours. I'd love to sell you 900,000 kilowatt hours. But because you're already purchasing 200,000 from Great Bay Hydro, our understanding right now of the rules is that the maximum that the city could purchase would be 700,000 kilowatt hours, because you add the 700,000 plus the 200,000 you already have, you're at 900,000. That's the output of a 500 kilowatt AC solar array. We had a discussion just today with various lawyers and the Renewable Energy Vermont industry lobbyists in Montpelier. Where's a workaround? How do we, and there are cities and towns, the League of Cities and Towns, as well as all the superintendents, have submitted comments to the Public Service Board saying this limitation is not right on Vermont taxpayers. it might be correct to say Sugar Bush shouldn't be allowed to have more than a 500 kilowatt array, or Cabot Cheese or Smugs or a for-profit entity shouldn't be allowed to take more than 500 kilowatts of net metering. But towns and schools and cities ought to be able to do that because that generates savings for all taxpayers. And why should the legislature be limiting taxpayers' abilities to take advantage of solar net metering? So it's just to say that there's still a little bit of uncertainty about how this is going to shake out, whether the maximum purchase the city could make is 700,000, or maybe there's an opportunity to get the full output of the array up to 900,000. The point being, you will either save 12,000 bucks a year. If we can get up to 900,000, you could save $15,000 a year. Again, it's no cost to the city. There's no risk, there's no liability. We own and operate the array. We pay for all the development costs, all the investment costs. All the city does is sign a net metering agreement, just like you've already done with Great Bay Hydro. I believe that Laura Dogan has shared with the council members a draft net metering agreement. And from our perspective, the next step would be to suggest that the council have its legal counsel, your legal counsel, review that agreement as to whether or not that's an acceptable agreement. This agreement is a standard conforming agreement that's been used with towns and schools and cities all throughout the state, but your legal counsel should absolutely review the agreement and identify whether there are any issues that you would want to see addressed. We are in conversations with several schools, certainly with the Derby Select Board, and basically any customer of VEC can purchase these net metering credits. But from our perspective, we would rather work with the City of Newport because it's one single large customer and that makes our transaction costs lower. And it saves us from going around trying to negotiate 8 different net metering agreements. And we have one with you, and maybe next week we'll do one with the Derby Select Board for the other remaining bits of the solar arrays production that right now we don't think can go to the city. So that's sort of what I wanted to put in front of you. I'm happy to answer anyone's questions about this solar array. It is a fixed ground mount solar array. Bottom of the panel is about 3 feet high, top part of the panel is about 8.5 feet high. These are not the big solar trackers that are 25 feet high. As I said, this is set back about 750 feet from the road. We've got, I don't think there's going to be any major negative visible impact. I've been presenting this to the Derby Planning Commission. They're okay with it. The Derby Select Board is okay with it. And all of the neighbors have all been informed about the project. Certainly the Regional Planning Commission is on board with it. So I think it's all going to go through, but I'm happy to answer anyone's questions.
Yeah, I have a quick question. When you started talking, did you say that it wasn't going to cost VEC anything?
Correct.
All right, explain how that works then. So you produce something and we get a credit of, what, a penny? How do you get paid? Tell me how you get paid.
Right. So we sell the net metering credits, okay?
Now let's just talk about electricity for a second.
Okay.
You're going to generate electricity.
900,000 kilowatt hours.
Who's going to buy it?
Nobody buys that electricity. The electricity goes into Vermont Electric Co-op's grid, and anyone who needs it is purchasing it. It just goes into the grid. So
what do you charge a kilowatt hour?
What we are charging is the value of the net metering credit minus 10%. So that's in the second page there, your net metering
Who's
calculator.
paying your credit? You're gonna, how many cents you getting paid a kilowatt hour? 20 cents? 19 cents?
16.92.
Okay.
16.92.
And who pays you that? 16.92.
Nobody.
Well, of course somebody pays you because VEC.
No, I'll explain to you.
Good.
Let's look right at it. Let's look at the map, because
Thank
that's,
you.
that's the best way to do it.
I am thick-headed.
Okay? So, net metering credit, VEC, is 14.92 cents. Because we put it in a reclaimed gravel pit, we get an extra 2 cents a kilowatt hour. So the value of the net metering credit is 16.92 cents. All that is a credit. It's not VEC paying us for the electricity. It's a credit. We have to sell that credit. And that's what we're proposing to do, is to sell you that credit. We can't sell you that credit at that price, 16.92, because you wouldn't save any money. If you bought something for 16 cents that's worth 16 cents, there wouldn't be any savings. We're proposing to sell you that credit that's worth 16.92 cents at a 10% discount, 15.23 cents. So we're asking the city to pay us 15.23 cents per kilowatt hour for something that's going to be worth 16.92 cents. So for every kilowatt hour you buy, you're saving 1.7 cents. And if you buy 700,000 of those things, you're going to save 11,843.
Because 16.92 was the current with VEC charges, is that it?
No.
Or has nothing to do with VEC?
It has nothing to do with what VEC charges.
Is that price, how long is that price good for? That for 20 years?
This 14.92 is what's called the blended residential rate, which looks at all of the Vermont utilities, and they do a big weighted average, and it comes out with a blended residential rate. Don't confuse what you're paying, what VEC is charging you for electricity, with what a net metering credit is worth.
So
A net metering credit is worth more per kilowatt hour than what the city pays for its
So this is
electricity.
different than my net metering in my house, where I just get a credit on my bill. They reduce my,
Correct.
and then they give me credits if I go negative. And they,
Right.
so this,
So as over time, as the price of electricity likely goes up, over the last 30 years on average, it goes up 2.5%, 3% a year, right? The value of the net metering credit goes up right with it. It's pegged to it. Okay? So that means that actually as electricity rates go up over 20 years, the value of that net metering credit is going to go up with it, and your savings relative to where you would be if you were not buying any net metering credits will go up as well.
This is a little different from the Great Bay Hydro, isn't it?
I have no idea what the arrangement is with
On the
Great
Great
Bay
Bay
Hydro.
Hydro, I'm a little familiar with that because I was here when it was done. If my memory doesn't fail me, I'll get it right. They get paid, I think, 19 or 20 cents from VEC for all
Those
the
were
power.
the old, up till the end of 2016, the value of net
All right.
metering credit was 19 cents.
All right, so they get paid 19 cents, and they give us a penny or whatever it is. So we make money. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. We save a little money. So this is different from that.
No, it isn't. It's just that the value of the credit in 2017 is different from what it was in 2016.
That 14.82 is determined on the statewide average. That's what you're saying.
Mhm. And there is now this concept of preferred siting criteria of 2 cents. So, because the state doesn't want us to put solar arrays in green fields anymore, because people don't want to look at it.
So if a miracle happened, and it'd be a miracle, but let's say miracles do happen. A miracle happens and VEC lowers their rates to municipality to 13 cents a kilowatt hour. Then this wouldn't be a good deal if that miracle happened, right?
No, because the value of the credit would also go down with it. So there's always going to be a 10%.
I understand, yes.
There's always going to be
Okay.
a 10% differential.
Thank you, I understand.
It's pegged.
Well,
John, do you have inside information? Is that?
No, but you know what happens, we have to maintain the poles and wires.
Correct.
And the big fight about net metering is, hey, people have to help pay for those poles and wires. And that's what the big fight's about. Because, of course, as an end user, you don't want to pay for poles and wires. If I can have a thing on my roof and I'm self-sufficient, but when I need it, it comes. Well, someone has to have those wires and poles maintained.
So there is now, with the new rules, a set of non-bypassable charges.
Yes.
Right? Which is a wonderful term. it's not self-explanatory, but it basically means the monthly customer charge that you have to pay for every one of your accounts cannot be offset with net metering. The energy efficiency charge cannot be offset by net metering. The only thing that can be offset is your actual electricity consumption. So you're still paying for the lines and wires because you're paying that customer charge for every meter.
Gee, that's kind of like what I told was it
John,
Ms. Housequest, I told her that that's the way it should be, that we pay, like, I mean, I should be paying for, I have solar, and
Right.
I can tell you from April of last year to November, I had no electric bill whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I made it known that I should pay at least something each month for the maintenance, and that's a good way of doing it, where the net metering doesn't go for that minimum, and you have to pay that minimum no matter what, it just
Correct.
offsets your electrical usage.
Correct.
Which I think that's a fair way of doing it, and I know in a meeting I had mentioned that.
So that's
It'd be a
new
good
in
way
the
of doing it.
2017 rules.
John, you're on the board, do you know what we're paying per kilowatt hour?
16 or 17 cents.
16, 17 cents, so that's not
Correct.
great.
VEC's rate is one of the highest in the state. GMP's is 14.8.
My brother's on GMP, my son's on GMP.
We had a question in the back.
Mr. Carlson, what is the total kilowatt output of the array?
About, we're expecting it'll be between 875 to 900,000
Yeah.
kilowatt hours a year.
And you're hoping that the city of Newport would purchase
700,000
700,000 of that?
Yep,
Why wouldn't you be proposing that to Derby since it's gonna be located in Derby?
because Derby's electricity expenditures, the town itself, they spend maybe $11,000 a year on electricity.
We have all the infrastructure,
Yeah.
pumps
So,
and sewer.
their electricity expenditures are very, very low. They could save maybe $1,000.
So it's based on our ratio formula probably?
So it's based on the fact that you guys spend 300,000 a year and they spend around $40,000 a year. So we've certainly proposed to Derby that they buy as many credits as they could use, but we certainly would not propose to them that they buy any more than they need, because then they're not saving any money.
Thank you.
Yep.
What is the cost of the credit to the city?
So the cost of the credit, did you give that?
Oh, no, I put it in my file.
Show it right there. So the cost to the city would be 15.23 cents.
Okay.
And they'd be getting something that's worth 16.92.
How much of an outlay would there be? Is that it?
There is no outlay. There is no outlay. This is just savings.
Just savings.
It's,
Now, do we have to do some admin work to provide you with, do we do any admin work for Great Bay, if I remember right, John?
I don't think we do
Very
much.
little.
We just send, we have to pay them. And the reason they like dealing with us is because our credit's good, and we pay our bills. And they deal with one post office box, basically.
Yeah.
That's why they, you know, it's awesome. It's just business.
Okay. But there really is not much involved, no. I just-
right. So what we would need to do, and Laura Dolgan has sent me the 2016 electricity expenditures by meter and by account. So if and when we got to the point where we were finalizing the net metering agreement, we would go through sort of account by account and say, we need to allocate, we need to tell VEC, allocate this much of the array's production to this account, and this much of the array's production to that account. And it becomes, then it gets computerized, and VEC, once they plug it all in, that all works. You guys have one issue that I would, if we went forward, that I would raise, is that with Great Bay Hydro, the account that you have it tagged to is your big sewer treatment account, $111,000 a year. You're only getting a small amount really deducted from that 111. We would ask that you put that on a different account, because we can't put our credits onto the same account that Great Bay Hydro is doing, so that you're not able to reduce that big piece, that big account, as much as you could. So Great Bay Hydro, I would have done the same thing. They picked the low-hanging fruit, which was your biggest single expense, and $111,000 for your treatment. But it's a very easy administrative change to tell VEC, take those 200,000 credits from Great Bay Hydro and apply them to a different one of your accounts, which would then free up your $111,000 sewer treatment account for the 700,000 in credits. And it would make your transaction costs and administrative costs a lot simpler. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of accounts, each one getting a little bit of credits, and it becomes much harder for the city manager or the treasurer to figure out where these credits are going to this bill and to that bill, and so you want to simplify the number of accounts, if you can, that are benefiting from the net meter.
Anything else? John and then Jennifer.
Just to stick up for VEC for a second. We haven't had a rate increase in 3 years. The last 8 years, our average rate increase was 1% per year. And we have to do a lot of things. The state makes us spend a lot of money on Tier 3. There's new requirements to do all this energy stuff. And we send $400,000 a month to Efficiency Vermont. That's almost $5 million a year that all of our ratepayers send to Efficiency Vermont. That might tickle your fancy a bit.
Jennifer.
Just a question, is the production guaranteed?
The production is not guaranteed, but what is guaranteed, and it's in the net metering agreement at the end, is there is a process of reconciliation. So that if the city paid for credits that it did not receive, we reimburse the city. So but the fact, if the city says we want 700,000 kilowatt hour, we know the array is going to do more than 700,000. Is it going to be 875 or 900,000? You might get small variations year by year depending on the weather, depending on certain things, but we know pretty much what it's going to be through the modeling. But the key point for the city is that there is this reconciliation process whereby the city will never pay for net metering credits that you don't receive. And you want that in there.
Yes, Ann?
Yep.
Yeah, how long have you been around as a company, and about how much profit do you make per year?
So I'm not going to tell you the second part,
Okay.
right? Because that's just business, right? We're doing fine. We're a small Vermont-based company. There are 6 full-time employees.
How long have you been in
We've been in
existence?
business since 2011. You can see there are projects. I would add just solar net metering, I think in the past, understandably so, has also been criticized because developers and utilities have been selling what's called the renewable energy credits out of state to Connecticut and Massachusetts for those coal-fired power plants to offset their fossil fuel usage. That's no longer allowed. So all of the renewable energy certificates from this array basically are turned over to VEC, and VEC uses them to meet its renewable energy portfolio standards. If we didn't do that, we would lose 6 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's a very, very strong economic incentive to retire.
So where are you going to market the other 175,000 kilowatts, or are you?
Right. So it's a good question. I want to sell them all to you, and if I could get a clear legal opinion that says yes, there's a way to work around this customer limit of 500 kilowatts, perhaps by defining each electricity meter as a customer as opposed to the city, which has 20 different meters, and we're trying to figure that out. I am marketing those 175, 200,000 credits to the town of Derby, to the school in Derby, to the high school, and that was one of the discussions we had. I'm happy to go talk to the Newport School Board. I have talked to Glenn Hankinson, who's the CFO in the superintendent's office, and We work with a lot of schools around the state, and I'd be happy to go to the school and do what I'm doing right here.
About the hospital.
Can you do it to, he missed the hospital.
Hospital.
You-
Sure,
you do-
we do hospitals, we're doing the Brattleboro Hospital, we're doing Grace Cottage, so.
I recommended the elementary
Oh,
school.
I definitely will.
Yeah.
But we had a conference, I had to be in the conference call, and
Right.
when the cap was mentioned, I said,
So,
maybe approach the high school or the elementary school, just to
Right.
see.
so I owe it to the Derby Select Board, I'm meeting with them next Monday, for them to decide if they want to go forward. Again, they don't need a whole lot, but I wouldn't want to sell what they do need just because this array is going to be in Derby and we have offered it to them. And so I'm sort of waiting for that process to play out. So hopefully in a week's time, I'd know how much I could come back and go to the schools or the hospital for us to, both are solid customers.
Any other questions? Yes.
Where are your solar things manufactured?
Fair question. We don't buy the solar panels until the project is approved. And we have net metering agreements in place because that's when the money flows from the banks. And at that point, we go out on the market and we buy solar panels. Solar panels come from China, from Korea, from Taiwan, from Mexico, from the United States, from Germany, Japan. Last year, most of our solar panels were Kyocera, which is a Japanese brand. They were made in Mexico. This year, right now, it looks like the Chinese modules are, in terms of price and output, looking like the best value. The panels are all guaranteed, warranted for 25 years, both in terms of solidity and in terms of production. There is a, to be expected, 0.5% production degradation every year in terms of what your panels will produce. So 20 years from now, you'll be getting, the array will be producing 10% less than it is now. But you've got, we would have production guarantees to that effect in addition to just sort of durability. There's one company left in the US making panels, Solar World out of Oregon. I got a solar array myself down in Proctor, a community solar array. I bought Solar Worlds because I just said I'm gonna do that, but.
Mine are Kyocera.
Okay, yeah. So.
Okay, then I think what we need to do is to have our attorney review all this. I think probably a motion to that effect, to have this maybe tabled upon legal review at our next meeting. That way the attorney can review it. So we would need a motion to basically table this for legal review, and we can have it on the next agenda.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded to have it tabled for legal review. Any other discussion on that? Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your questions.
Thank you. Okay.
Can I have that piece of paper?
The next item is land purchase recommendation, Tom Bernier.
Well, I get that memo, but,
We received a
here's the,
memo from, right,
I printed this off today. This is the parcel question. I don't know if you're familiar with our Bailey pit off of Highland Avenue. If you go into the Bailey pit.
Oh, yes, yep, I know
This,
there,
there's a, behind this property here is basically a berm. That piece of property is landlocked. There's no utilities back there. It's really of no use
So it's
to
77.
anybody. They would have a right of way through our property, but,
Yeah.
so really, the only entity that would be of interest of purchasing it would be us. It would certainly, to clean it up, it would certainly add more usable space for us for materials, stockpiling.
Seems like a fair price, too.
So I negotiated with Christina Netto, so I'm just looking for your approval to move forward.
now, if I remember right, see, the charter prevents us from selling. I don't know, can we, I have to review the charter about buying.
There's nothing
I
in
don't-
there about buying.
Nothing about buying? Because I know if you sell something over, if you sell something 1,000 or more, we have to get voter approval. But purchasing, John,
Yeah, what are they asking for?
6,000.
6,000.
Yeah, it's on the taxes 11.5.
Yeah, they were asking considerably more.
Way back, yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Because they came to us several years
A
ago.
couple of years ago.
Couple, yeah, and it was a lot more than, it was like 25,000 they wanted at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. That's why John's shaking his head.
I hadn't fallen off the turnip truck yet.
No, I thought that seemed, yeah. Go ahead.
And when you do, we have drugs for that, don't worry about it.
Okay, go ahead, Jack.
We'll take care of you.
I think, I'm not opposed to buying it, I think it's a good idea, but I think we should wait until we actually sell the other piece and use the money from that to buy it, because I don't believe we have that kind of money in the budget for it right now.
My thoughts to, and what I discussed with Laura, because realistically, that Bailey pit's utilized for stockpiling materials, which usually for projects,
Right.
either road, sewer, and water. So I was planning on splitting it between the three, because that's pretty much what we use it for.
So something you
So
can-
then it would be a very low impact on my general budget.
Yeah.
But if we're gonna sell the other property for 15 or 20,000, we'll have the money to buy this one, and it won't affect your budget at all.
No, the only thing,
Yes, we jump on that.
they really would like to move it.
The thing is too, Jack, that's not a guarantee. I mean, I got opposition today from neighbors that aren't really quick to see that develop, so I think we should take this opportunity and purchase it. If Tom can pull it out of his budget without current operating budget, I don't see a problem with it. I mean, that's not a guarantee, that other sale.
Yeah, I think for that price, considering they originally, it was 25,000. They wanted originally for it, now it's only
Yeah,
6,000.
even the assessed value wasn't really, I mean, when he, I'm sure back years ago, when they used it as a gravel pit, it had, you know, there was value in it, but we haven't been able to use that as a pit for many, many years.
But we can sign it, purchase and sale with a contingent of, you know, kind of tying the two together would be, as far as signing purchase and sale, we can put whatever we want in purchase and sale, which will guarantee that we're gonna buy it eventually. This way they know that it's gonna be sold.
No, you're only talking if you're gonna split it, you're only talking $2,000.
Per
Yeah.
department.
Yeah, but it's still $6,000 out of your budget,
No, if he's splitting between water, sewer, and the general fund.
but it's still out of the budget, it's still $6,000, how you split it?
I don't know, I think we should jump.
Well, it's
I think we
split
should
between
jump on
my general budget and then sewer and water, so it's really only 2,000. Plus, part of that was we paid the legal fees to do all the paperwork, but I don't think that's gonna be all that much. So say if it was even 3,000 out of my each budget, it's only affecting my general budget, $3,000.
Between your legal fees and title work, because you're gonna want a title search done. I would not advise anybody, being a real estate broker, I would never advise anybody to buy a piece of property without doing a title search, and that's $400 or $500 right there.
Well, we're still
So
only
you're gonna have another $1,000 in closing costs.
So even if I'm talking 1,000 in each, I'm still only talking $2,000.
Yeah. I'm not opposed to buying it, don't get me wrong.
No, I'm just saying,
I'm just
they're
concerned
in a
about-
position where they really need to move the property, and I think that's why we came up with the price we did. But I
Mr.
guess
Mayor, I'll
that's
make a
your
motion,
decision.
I'll make a motion that we purchase the property for $6,000.
The motion's been made, is there a second? Second, made by Mr. Vincent, seconded by Mr. Morissette. And it will, discussion, and for discussion, so it will be divided amongst each.
So you're gonna add your motion, it's gonna be divided up amongst the departments.
It'll be divided amongst the departments.
He's
My
the
department.
department,
Yeah, he knows that,
Sure,
yeah.
sure.
Okay. Anything else on that?
What about your legal fees?
Well, that'll be,
Shouldn't you make that in the motion?
Add the legal fees in, yeah.
Yeah.
She's asking you,
Yeah,
should
it's gonna be 6,000 plus legal fees.
Plus closing
Plus
costs.
closing costs.
closing costs, it's really closing costs is what it is, title search and closing costs.
So I'll amend my motion to include closing costs.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, then, any other discussion? Then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Okay, Mr. Johnson, new business. Mr. Wilson. Mr. Robert.
Nope.
I don't have anything. Anything?
I do not, Mr. Mayor.
Tom, anything? And then we'll move old business, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, I've got loan documents, the council needs to sign for that fire department vehicle, which you've already authorized, so. Need a motion to sign it, and everybody can sign.
So in the end, that purchase was from Hayes Ford, I understand?
Yeah, Hayes Ford.
Hayes Ford. Good. We kept it local, good.
So we need a motion? So we need a motion to approve signing those
Yeah,
documents.
yeah.
We do? We already approved it.
We've already
We already approved.
So you don't need,
Yeah, okay.
so, Mr. Johnson had recommended a motion, that's why I went along.
No, that's all right.
So as long as you sign it,
We already approved it.
okay.
Jamie's going, oh no, not again.
Just want to make sure.
There you go, sir.
Could be home having a beer.
That's all I got.
Good interest rate. Okay, 1.6%. I wish I could put that right.
Anything else, Mr. Johnson? Mr. Wilson? Mr. Wilburn, old business, I don't have anything.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Anything? Okay. Then the next meeting will actually be our annual meeting as per the city charter, which is to bring up any other business from the annual meeting. And it's tomorrow night, March 7th at 8 PM in the gym. And then the next regular scheduled council meeting is March 20th, 2017, 6:30 PM here. And then the Centennial Planning Committee meeting is March 20th, 5 to 6 PM here in this room. And we need a motion to adjourn at 8:05. So motion made, is there a second? Second. Seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, we're adjourned.